The View panel has seen plenty of lively debates over the years, but this conversation carried a different tone from the start. Meghan Markle joined the panel expecting to discuss her recent projects and charitable work. Across the table sat Sharon Osbourne, who was promoting recent appearances honoring her late husband, Ozzy Osbourne, while also speaking openly about the difficult months following his passing. Whoopi Goldberg guided the discussion through the usual introductions, and the atmosphere remained friendly. But as the conversation shifted toward philanthropy and public service, Sharon asked a direct question about the long-term impact of Archewell. It wasn't an accusation or a personal attack. It was simply a request for specific examples, something Sharon has become known for throughout her decades in the entertainment industry. Meghan answered by describing the Foundation's broader mission and long-term goals, but Sharon seemed unconvinced, asking whether there were measurable results the audience could easily recognize. What followed wasn't a shouting match. It was a calm but increasingly pointed exchange between two women with very different perspectives on success, public service, and accountability. Because Sharon had spent the previous year dealing with profound personal loss, her comments carried an emotional weight that made the discussion feel far more personal than anyone expected. This conversation quickly became one of the most talked about moments from the episode. The show began as expected. Whoopi welcomed both guests, giving Sharon an opportunity to discuss the emotional experience of watching tributes celebrating Ozzy's life and legacy. Sharon acknowledged that the experience had been meaningful, but also incredibly difficult. It's strange seeing someone you love remembered on stage, she explained. You're proud, but you're also reminded of what you've lost. The panel reflected briefly on resilience, before turning toward Meghan's charitable initiatives and current projects. Whoopi noted that both women had spoken publicly about using their platforms to create positive change and asked how their experiences had shaped those goals. Meghan described Archewell as an organization focused on mental health, community programs, and long-term partnerships designed to encourage lasting change. Sharon listened carefully before responding. That's an important goal, she said. But what would you point to if someone asked what those efforts have produced so far? Meghan explained that many charitable initiatives take years before their impact becomes fully visible. Sharon nodded but continued. I understand that meaningful work takes time, she replied. I'm just asking for examples people can easily understand. Although Meghan remained composed, the conversation had clearly become more challenging than originally anticipated. Sharon continued asking for specific examples of completed projects or programs connected to Archewell. She compared the question to charitable initiatives she had supported over the years, explaining that she preferred discussing measurable outcomes rather than broad mission statements. Meghan emphasized that the organization's work focused on collaboration with existing groups instead of creating entirely new institutions. That the difference in philosophy became clear. Sharon believed public organizations should communicate concrete achievements. Meghan argued that meaningful change often happens gradually through partnerships, rather than highly visible projects. Joy Behar briefly attempted to broaden the discussion, but Sharon respectfully suggested allowing Meghan additional time to answer. The exchange remained polite, although noticeably more direct. As the conversation shifted toward business ventures, Sharon asked about public reports surrounding several of Meghan's commercial projects and whether they had met expectations. Meghan acknowledged that every business experiences challenges and adjustments over time. Sharon responded that setbacks are a normal part of any career and suggested audiences often appreciate straightforward honesty when projects don't perform exactly as planned. While neither woman raised her voice, the contrast between Sharon's direct communication style and Meghan's more measured responses created a clear tension at the table. After the episode aired, viewers shared a wide range of opinions online. Some praised Sharon's willingness to ask detailed follow-up questions, arguing that public figures should be prepared to discuss measurable results behind their charitable work. Others felt Meghan remained calm throughout the discussion and believed her explanations reflected the long-term nature of nonprofit organizations and collaborative initiatives. Entertainment commentators also noted the contrast between the two women's communication styles. Sharon approached the discussion with the blunt, conversational style that has defined much of her television career. Meghan maintained a more careful and diplomatic tone, emphasizing broader goals and long-term planning. Whether viewers agreed with one perspective or the other, the conversation sparked widespread debate about accountability, public image, and the challenges of discussing charitable work in a live television setting. In the end, it wasn't a dramatic confrontation that captured attention. It was two experienced public figures presenting very different ideas about leadership, success, and what meaningful impact should look like. Sharon paused for a moment before continuing. "That's the part I'm trying to understand," she said. "Sometimes the public message and the business decisions don't seem to match." Meghan remained composed. "I don't think that's a fair characterization." Sharon nodded. "I'm not saying it to criticize you personally. I'm simply saying that's how it can appear from the outside." After a brief pause, Sharon carefully shifted the conversation in a more personal direction. "I know this is sensitive," she said, "but with so much public discussion about family relationships lately, has your own father ever crossed your mind?" Meghan's expression became more reserved. "My relationship with my father is something I prefer to keep private," Sharon responded thoughtfully. "I respect that. Losing Ozzy reminded me how precious time really is. It changes the way you think about difficult relationships," she continued gently. "I'm not pretending to know your situation. Every family has its own history. I only know that once someone is gone, you don't get another chance," Meghan replied quietly. "Every family's circumstances are different, and there are reasons people make the decisions they do." "I completely understand that," Sharon said. "I'm only speaking from my own experience. Grief has a way of changing your perspective." The audience remained silent as both women reflected before the discussion moved on. Sharon then turned toward another topic that had received public attention. "There have also been reports over the years about staff turnover around some of your organizations. How do you respond when people raise those concerns?" Meghan answered without hesitation. "Any growing organization experiences change. That's true across many industries." Sharon acknowledged the point. "That's certainly true, but when similar stories keep appearing, people naturally become curious about what's behind them." Meghan replied, "Not every report reflects reality. Public figures often become the subject of speculation, and those stories can take on a life of their own." Sharon nodded. "That's fair. Rumors exist in every industry. At the same time, reputation is something people pay attention to, whether the stories are accurate or not." Meghan maintained her composure. "I've learned that public perception and personal experience are often very different things," Sharon agreed, "and that's exactly why conversations like this matter. They give people a chance to hear directly from the person involved instead of relying only on headlines." The discussion then shifted to the constant media attention surrounding Meghan's personal life. Sharon asked how she handled the ongoing speculation about her marriage. Meghan answered simply, "Most of those stories are based on speculation rather than fact. We've learned not to respond to every rumor." Sharon accepted the response with a nod. "I imagine living under that level of public scrutiny isn't easy." The conversation gradually moved on, leaving viewers to interpret the exchange for themselves. The discussion shifted toward the pressures of maintaining a public marriage. Sharon reflected on her own experience. "I've been married for decades," she said. "Like many couples, we've faced serious challenges over the years. Marriage isn't perfect, and I've never tried to pretend it was." Meghan responded calmly. "Every relationship is different, and ours is something we prefer to keep private." Sharon nodded. "I respect privacy. I just think public perception often creates questions, and people naturally look for clarity." Meghan replied, "Public figures deal with speculation all the time. It's simply part of the reality." Sharon smiled slightly. "That's true. I've lived through years of headlines myself. Sometimes they were exaggerated, sometimes they weren't. Either way, I learned that you can't control every story." The conversation briefly turned to the intense media attention surrounding Meghan and Prince Harry's family. Sharon carefully chose her words. "There are all kinds of rumors online about public families. How do you deal with that level of scrutiny?" Meghan answered without hesitation. Many of those stories are completely false and some are deeply hurtful. My priority has always been protecting my children. Sharon acknowledged her point. Every parent wants that. We all make different decisions about how much of our family life to share. She added, my family lived much of our lives in front of cameras, and that came with its own challenges. There isn't a perfect approach, Meghan responded. Exactly. Every family has to decide what's right for them. The exchange remained respectful, but the contrast in their perspectives was unmistakable. Sharon believed openness often helped reduce speculation. Meghan believed privacy was essential for protecting those closest to her. Neither woman appeared willing to change her position. As the discussion continued, Meghan observed that the conversation had become increasingly personal. I came here expecting to talk about my work, she said. Instead, we've spent much of the time discussing my private life, Sharon answered calmly. My intention isn't to make things personal. When someone lives in the public eye, people naturally have questions, and interviews sometimes go beyond prepared talking points. The atmosphere in the studio grew noticeably quieter. Whoopi attempted to ease the tension, encouraging both guests to focus on the broader themes of public life and personal responsibility. Meghan thanked the hosts for the opportunity to speak and indicated she was ready to move on from the more personal topics. Sharon simply nodded. We don't have to agree, she said. Sometimes two people can see the same situation very differently. The conversation gradually shifted to a close, leaving viewers with two contrasting perspectives rather than a clear winner. By the time the segment ended, social media was already filled with debate over the exchange, with some viewers praising Sharon's direct questions and others defending Meghan's decision to maintain clear boundaries around her personal life. As Meghan prepared to leave the discussion, the atmosphere in the studio became noticeably tense. Sharon remained firm in her position. I believe difficult conversations are sometimes necessary, she said, especially when people are discussing important topics in public. Meghan exited the conversation, leaving the panel to reflect on what had just happened. For a moment, the studio was quiet. Whoopi Goldberg finally broke the silence. Well, that was certainly a very direct conversation, Sharon responded calmly. I think people sometimes avoid difficult questions because they are uncomfortable, but honest conversations can still happen respectfully. She explained that the past year had changed her perspective. Going through loss teaches you what really matters. You start looking at life differently and focusing less on appearances and more on genuine connections. The other hosts acknowledged that the exchange had been unusually personal. They noted that interviews with public figures often involve carefully prepared answers, making moments of direct questioning stand out. Whoopi reminded viewers that conversations involving public figures can be complicated. Everyone has their own experiences, their own challenges, and their own reasons for making certain choices. Sharon agreed. My intention was never to embarrass anyone. I simply believe people should be able to have honest discussions, even when the answers are uncomfortable. She added that grief had changed her priorities. When you experience something life-changing, you realize many things people worry about aren't as important as they once seemed. What matters most is being genuine with the people around you. The panel reflected on how difficult it can be for celebrities to balance public expectations with personal boundaries. One host commented that many guests arrive on television programs carefully prepared, knowing every word can be analyzed afterward. Sharon replied, everyone protects themselves in different ways. I think we all do what we need to do to get through difficult moments. After the segment aired, viewers had different reactions. Some praised Sharon's willingness to ask challenging questions and appreciated her direct communication style. Others felt the discussion became too personal and believed Meghan had every right to maintain privacy around sensitive family matters. The conversation quickly spread online, with people debating the difference between transparency and personal boundaries. Supporters of Sharon argued that public figures should be prepared to discuss their work openly when they appear on television. Supporters of Meghan argued that having a public platform does not mean every private matter must be explained publicly. The debate highlighted a larger question that many celebrities face. How much of their personal lives should they share with the world? In the end, The conversation was less about one person being right or wrong and more about two very different views on privacy, accountability, and public life. For Sharon, the experience reinforced her belief that honesty matters, especially after facing personal loss. For Meghan, it reflected the ongoing challenge of protecting personal boundaries while living under constant public attention. And for viewers, it became another example of why live conversations can create moments that continue long after the cameras stop rolling. If you enjoy thoughtful discussions about celebrity culture, public image, and the challenges of life in the spotlight, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Share your thoughts in the comments. Was this conversation about honesty, privacy, or simply two people with very different perspectives? Because sometimes the most interesting moments happen when public figures are forced to balance personal experiences, public expectations, and the pressure of living in front of the world.